Hello budget people, and welcome back to another episode of the She's on a Budget podcast. My name is Euphemia and I'm your host, and I'm on a mission to deliver jargon-free money advice to help you fast track your way to financial freedom. Today's episode is all about financial abuse, the negative impact it may have on you, the not so obvious telltale signs that you may experience in it, and I'll be offering my advice on how you may choose to navigate your way through it. Today I am joined by Eliana. She just told me off, guys, because of the way that I say her name. So it's Eliana.
Yeah,
Eliana.
I'm not Italian, but you give it 2 syllables. It's just one word.
Okay, Eliana.
Yeah, you can call me El, babe. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. I'll call you Ellie.
Don't call me Ellie. Just
okay.
Anyway.
We are quite merry, guys, and it isn't because we are no, it isn't because we are taking this topic lightly. I think it is a very serious topic, but I think that if you get to know myself and Ellie, you will realise that we are quite light-hearted people, and we try to, use humour and light-heartedness to get our way through things. I don't know.
I think because we had similar experiences, so we know how to joke about it. Yeah. Very similar
It's true. We have been through very, very similar experiences. I think that's the reason why I think it would be a good idea to kind of have this conversation with Ellie. I feel that she can give her take on her experience with this type of abuse, and I can give my take, and you guys can, get the best of both worlds, if that makes sense. Because I feel like although we both experienced financial abuse, I definitely think it was packaged differently,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was very blind. You were a little bit more, you could see certain
I don't
things.
think I could,
No,
babe.
actually, maybe not.
No,
maybe
not at the time. Definitely not at the time. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is discuss about what financial abuse is. I recently put a video out on TikTok where I spoke about the signs and proof that you may be currently experiencing financial abuse. And I do want to kind of start off by saying that this can be something that you are experiencing, not necessarily inside of a marriage, like both myself and Ellie have experienced it in, but you may be experiencing it through a family member. It could be a parent. It could even be a child. So it definitely varies from person to person. And some of the signs and some of the symptoms of this type of abuse are not as clear cut. They're not as evident in certain relationships as they are in others. Some of the signs that you might see within a marriage may show up differently within a relationship between a parent and child, for instance. So
it's more covert as well, isn't it?
Some things, yes,
isn't it?
Some things are more covert, some things are more overt. Definitely. Looking back on my experience, one of the first signs of financial abuse that came up in my relationship was the fact that every time I spent money, it was an issue. The thing is, it was subtle at first. Mm-hmm. It was very, very subtle at first, guys. I'm talking about, you might go to the supermarket and it would turn into an argument, or you might buy something for the kids. Someone will have, not a tantrum, but you could tell you're getting the cold shoulder.
What I remember one time was when I really sort of started to get the gist of what it was. It was, I could go out and I could go shopping to the supermarket and it was fine. Mm-hmm. Then 2 weeks later, I would be told, why did you spend all that money? Mm-hmm. We haven't got money in the bank. And then again, the week later, it was fine to spend it. So it was like a little, like a circle.
So, yeah,
I can't explain it.
So
it
one minute it'd be fine.
Yep, next minute. And then you'd start thinking, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
You start to look out for those signs because they become repetitive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if yours was sort of similar.
Exactly the same. At first, for me, I felt like it was every single time. So it didn't matter whether I was buying food, I was buying something for the children. It was just that there was a negative response. But it does form a pattern, and you do start to realise that you are actually being trained as to not feel comfortable in spending money that is meant to be for the home. So, I think when I said it in the video, I was kind of worried that people would think that, maybe he has a right to be upset that you're spending money. Maybe you're spending too much money. That might be why he's upset. What I remember from my experience was looking back at times where I would ask for money for shoes for the children. And I remember being met with a response that, you know, like to say, oh, well, they haven't got holes in their shoes. And it was like, what, do they have to have holes in their shoes? And it made me feel bad. I did get married very young. So you got to think as well, like my husband was one of my very first serious relationships. So I took what he said as gospel. I didn't think anything he said was a lie. I just believed what he said. I trusted him. You know, he was my husband. So if he said to me, you know, you're spending too much money, or
you can't do this,
you shouldn't do this, you do that, I'm going to just believe that he's doing it for the best interest. I'm not going to think that he's trying to, you know.
Hit that nail in the head in the first one when you said it's trains you to then start thinking, I need to ask them whether I could buy this. I need to ask if I could do this. Does that make sense? So that's what I think when you said it's not all the time.
No.
Because if it was all the time, it'd be too obvious.
Yes.
So they have to do it in a way where it's not so obvious.
Yeah.
You then get trained. And you think, all right, I've got to ask for this.
Yeah.
I need to ask for that. Should I do this? Should I not spend that?
Yeah.
It's then it becomes with everything. It's not just one thing.
No.
If I didn't do something on time, just once, when I say once, I mean once, it was then, right, from now on, I'm going to be taking over all these bills. I'm going to be doing all the banking for us. And I'm thinking, you've never done, why would you need to do the banking?
But would he do it though?
No.
Exactly. A lot of people who have experienced financial abuse, in my opinion, from who I've spoken to, they are the ones that are the bill handlers, if that makes sense. Like you're the one in charge of paying the bills, looking after the kids. Like the financial responsibility is kind of on your head, but you don't hold the purse strings.
Yeah, no, you don't.
You don't hold the purse strings, but when it comes down to bills and who's paying them and when you're the one who has that stress on your head. And to be honest, there were many times where I would say, just do it. You do it then. If I'm doing it wrong,
I actually said that.
You do it. Take it off my head. But they won't.
They wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do it.
Gosh, that's so strange.
So strange. I'm not even joking. So that's why I said to you when you said that, I was like, did he do it though? No, he never did it.
Never did it. Ever.
Never.
Mine had a secret bank account.
Oh, let go. We're going to get onto that in a minute. Going to get onto that in a minute. At the time, you think that maybe you're doing something wrong. You genuinely believe the person that they're telling you not to spend this money with your best interests in mind.
And with the household interest.
Under the household, it's best for the household.
Yeah.
You know, and you've really figure out later on down the line that this was the start of your financial abusive journey. Okay, so the next part of the video I discussed talking about the fact that when you start to want to better yourself, i.e. maybe you get a job promotion or you look to better yourself, you want to get a job in general, you want to start earning money, you want to go to school even, it's met with defiance, guys. It's met with fire and brimstone, you know. I'll talk about my experience first of all. I was married, as you know, at a very, very young age. I had my children very young, guys. And I kind of did things back to front. So I had my children first, and then I decided to go and seek further education. So I finished school, but I wanted to go to university. I did have dreams of being, you know, in some kind of medical field at one point, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But all I knew is that I liked science. So for me, it was kind of like, I'm definitely going to do something in the scientific field. And it was just for me to just go back to school and study straight chem. And that's what I did. We had discussed I was going to go back to school. As a family, this was a discussion because at the time we were looking to move and live abroad. We were going to live in another country. And we thought the best job for me to have would be to be a teacher, because it's a bit of like a universal career, guys. No matter which country you go into, they're going to need teachers. So the plan was I will get my teaching degree. I like science, as I said, and I was going to go back to school to do that. As soon as I did this, which is actually quite crazy to me, because you got to think, we've had this discussion as a couple. I'm deciding to go back to school and do what we have planned to do. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm being a good girl. I'm following out the plan. Guys, if I tell you the amount of issues I had with my degree, there were times where I'd study in the toilet. At first, it wasn't very obvious, as it never is. It's not very obvious. It's just that you will be trying to study and the children will be running riot in the house. It's like there's a you know, a war going on and no one's being told off. You can see when you're trying to, you know, find childcare or figure out childcare to get to university, there's an issue. So it wasn't obvious at first. You just seem to feel like you're constantly being pushed against in a way, you felt like you've been sabotaged. Your efforts were being sabotaged when it came to studying. And then towards the end, you know, when those things didn't work and when I was still managing to get childcare or finding a way to study around all the madness, when I was still managing to do that, it then became very obvious. So the arguments got worse. And eventually at one point, I do remember him saying to me, you know, like, you're only doing this now because you are trying to get away from me. And I was like, huh? How did we get here? We all know a lot of abuse comes from insecurity from the other person. Now looking back, at the time I was still oblivious to this all, but now looking back, that was definitely another sign that I was experiencing some sort of abuse, because for you to be insecure about me wanting to do the plan, not even just better myself on my own fruition. I had decided to do this on my own. We decided to do this together. For you to be against me on that was actually quite weird.
Was insecurity, but also control, maybe?
Well, yeah, it all comes together,
doesn't it? Yeah, you're right. I think the first time I ever encountered it, and it wasn't about, I think when we had the kids, it was more me staying at home, looking after the kids. There was not really, I didn't even think about career or anything like, I didn't have a path to have a career anyway, but would have been nice to have a job. But I was quite really happy with staying home and bringing up the kids. When we met in the gym and stuff, and then we got pretty close, and then you were going to start paleo now. That was the very first time I encountered it, and I thought he was looking out for my best interests because of me and you being friends.
Just in case you haven't seen that episode, guys, the first episode, if you go back and watch that, there was a time where I decided to start my own business, and that was meant to be done together. So we'd already met, we were getting on like a house on fire, and this idea that I had, we were going to do it together. In between finishing my university degree and starting my teacher training course, I had a year, and I was like, girl, let's do this. Let's try and see what happened. What happened your end?
As soon as you sort of told me about it, and I was like, yes, this is it. Let's do it. You know, we're mates, and it's going to be cooking. We love it. I love cooking, etc., etc. So I just remember actually not even waiting to go home to tell him. I actually remember calling him and saying, guess what? This, that, the other. Themes asked me, like, we're gonna. It was like straight away. It was like, what do you mean you're gonna do whatever? You haven't asked me. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went home. We discussed it. Part of him was like, you know, yeah, okay. That was it. By the next day, it was like, you are not gonna. I can't believe you're gonna do this. Blah blah. And I just remember crying my eyes out, thinking, how am I going to tell you that I can't do this?
I don't know why she thought of that,
I know.
guys.
I was like, how am I going to...
When Ellie told me what happened, guys, I didn't actually think it was a bad thing. Hear me out, right? I'm being serious.
Did you?
I didn't think it was a bad thing. When you told me that you can't do it, I was like, you know what? Maybe we're wrong. This is how we were thinking, guys. Because as I said, we both experienced very similar experiences at the same time. When he said it to her, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe we are bad because we've made a big decision without him. Maybe.
But we weren't thinking of it. I wasn't even thinking of it on a big scale. It was going to just start off as a little hobby.
I know. But I think the way he behaved, and I think the way that we were conditioned at that point, even though you were upset, we still didn't feel like he had taken the mick. We felt like his opinion was valid until he said what he said to me.
You did, because you sort of said to me, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. But then you started to think about it.
When he said what he said to me.
Yeah. I said to him, phone you, didn't I? To tell you, because I couldn't tell you.
So the next part of the video was about financial punishments. I feel like these punishments differ. Everyone's form of punishment is different. I would say my form of punishment was the hiding of funds. And I say it's punishment, guys, because we were on benefits at one point. As I said, I was studying. He wasn't working. And I remember struggling on this money. As I said, this person refused to get a job. And he had hidden thousands. I'm not saying hundreds of pounds. I'm talking about thousands of pounds was hidden from me, guys. And I found out about this at a later date. But all the while this money was being hidden from me, I was told, we ain't got no money. We can't do this. You need to learn to budget. You need to manage the money you're on. It was you are the problem.
I think my first experience was when we were right at the beginning of the marriage, probably the first to the third year. And I just remember one day this statement coming through the door from a bank that we didn't have. because we had joint bank accounts at the time. Well, we've always had joint bank accounts.
So it's funny as well, you probably had a joint bank account with him.
He had his own one.
Yeah, did you have another one?
I had one in my maiden name.
Yeah.
But he knew about it.
He knew about it.
Yeah, and he was fine with it because that was our, and I'll come to it later on, that was our rainy day. This statement came and I looked inside it. Well, I opened it, looked at it, and it had nothing, not great deal of money. It was about $3,000, I think, or just under. And I was like, wow, we're going back 25. That was a lot of money. And I'm thinking, where did and I knew you used to get occasional bonuses from work, but it was nothing major. It was every now and again, he'll, have a few hundred. Little did I know, when I questioned him about it, I said, where's this come from? Why have you got your own bank account? And his thing was, well, I was gambling. And that's what I was using the money for. And I'd be like, well, where'd you get it? And he'd be like, well, the occasional bonuses. And I was like, that for me, it was like, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this man and gambling? But clearly it was a lie because slowly it ended. The bank account apparently ended and everything was fine. I don't even know how everything was fine.
I hope that we haven't come across so far as to say any partner who is trying to encourage their other partner to be careful with money, that is financial abuse. We're not saying that. And I hope you can see that we're talking about situations that are quite normal and that would have usually taken just a discussion rather than manipulation. The reason why I can see a clear distinction now is that I only realised what I was going through when I saw a good example of what a marriage looked like. And I wasn't fortunate enough to see that until later on in life. And it was when I got closer to another family member and I saw how her husband behaved and I saw how she behaved, and their roles were very clear, and there wasn't this like push and pull game that was going on during my marriage. I think we went to the supermarket one day and she just paid for the food. And I just said to her, oh, whose like job is it? Whose responsibility is it to pay for the food in the house? She's like, his. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, he just gives me the money for the food and I'll go and do the shop. And I know you might think this is a very weird thing for me to say, but it sounded so foreign to me.
You saw that though, and you said you saw your cousins.
Yeah.
What did you think though when...
I was just shocked. Like, not even that shocked. You know what I was shocked more about? I was shocked at how easy it was.
Okay.
I was shocked at that we could go in a supermarket. She could just pick up what she wanted. Not what she wanted like that, like as if anything. She would, obviously this is food we're talking about here. So let's not get too carried away. She was just leisurely shopping. It was ease. Whereas I know for me, because as I said, he would always come to the supermarket with me, guys. He'd come to the supermarket with me to see what we're buying. So I would feel like, it's like you're having your dad watching you spend money, And she was just leisurely, as I said, strolling through, and I just thought, wow, that would be nice to just go through the super and not have someone like an ogre on your back. Do you know what I mean? Myself and Ellie, we've probably bonded over trauma, guys. We have.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I saw her do things that I thought were weird, but because I was doing my own weirdness.
I used to think yours was weird.
I used to think yours was weird and you thought I was weird. But
yeah.
I remember the first time when you went to the till and you asked for cash back.
I used to do
you remember?
Yeah.
I remember when she'd ask for cash back, guys. And I'd be like, why are you asking for cash back? She'd be going, because he doesn't know then. Because she'd use that money for an emergency for herself. Yeah. If you needed stuff for...
Even with the kids stuff like that,
Yeah, because if it's coming off the Tesco bill, he doesn't know that it's not Tesco food. Does that make sense, guys?
I didn't have to get the questions and why, and it was really innocent. And I knew that I was going to be ridiculed for it later on.
Yeah, so. And even, as I said, with me, when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, I had my own weirdness. So I was like, oh, we're both weird.
Yeah.
Thinking back on my life, on the whole situation, because I don't dwell on these things. It's something that me and Ellie talk about on a day-to-day basis. We don't talk about these things because it's a very, as a traumatic experience that we've gone through. We don't want to relive it over and over again.
But we're laughing about it now, luckily.
Yeah, luckily we can do that, thank God. I remember, I didn't used to shop in Aldi, Not in a horrible way. I'm not dissing Aldi.
No, I love Aldi.
I'm not dissing Aldi. I love my Aldi. I love it, But you know why I started shopping in Aldi? I started shopping in Aldi because someone told me, you can't afford to shop in Tesco's, babes. Because when you're buying food, guys, unless someone is telling you you need to starve your children, they have to control it to some degree. I was shopping in Tesco's, even Sainsbury's, now and again. And I was told, you can't afford to shop in that Tesco's. My mum shops in Aldi. You should shop there. Because he was still trying to control the purse strings, to trying to limit how much money I could allocate to food. So I did as I was told. I stopped shopping in Tesco's. I agree. I was like, yeah, it's true. It's a lot of money in it. So I shopping in Aldi, and it was still a problem.
I can't believe you just said that. It's just actually just brought back memories.
Go on.
I used to go Waitrose, M&S.
All the time.
Yeah. And then it was like, can't, you need to start watching things. That's when I started going maybe Tesco's. And then...
As I said, all this stuff is done under a very positive guise at first. You're really believing the person that, he's just looking out for us, we're just, what he's saying makes sense. You're doing your duty as a wife, and I think it's so sad to realise that all the while you were just being manipulated because of someone's insecurities. That's all it was. It was pure manipulation because they were insecure that if you were savvy with money, if you were doing what they are doing, you'd be able to leave them. And that's all it was. Because imagine, guys, if I was saving money on the side, if I was stashing money to one side and bettering myself and doing well, what would happen? I might eventually wake up and realise who I'm married to and leave. And that's the ultimate thing. Isn't it? So you're constantly trying to keep that person down a peg, limiting their resources, limiting their access to funds, because you don't want them to leave you. The last part of the video, I spoke about the long-term effects of financial abuse. I don't know if you've realised that a pattern has formed already in your mind as to maybe some of the things that I currently still do now that have probably started because I've gone through, or we've gone through experiences like this. I feel like there are certain traits that I have in my spending, especially early on, that I've now realised definitely were born during that era. At some point, you start to believe the lies. You start to believe you can't be trusted. You start to believe that you are the problem. You're bad with money because you genuinely believe that person, even though you know what they said wasn't true, you actually believe it deep down. But you have to keep reminding yourself that was not true. That isn't true. And even if it was true, you can still change your ways. You are still in control of your own actions, And I think that the longer you stay in it, the harder it is to move away from.
It does take a long time.
It takes
It takes years, if we're being honest.
It takes a long time, especially if you've been in it for years. It's going to take years. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
You're never really completely healed, I find. No. The healing process is always going on, but it just gets a lot easier. And a lot better, better, isn't it, I suppose. I remember being towards the end where we knew that marriage was over just before the divorce started, and I remember having this maiden name account I said to you that I had. I don't know how he didn't know exactly what was in there, but I just remember there was about £6,000, and I just remember before that actually going on holiday, and I said, well, that's our rainy day money. And he's going on about, well, no, we haven't got any other money. We need to use that money. I said, but we have. You said we could afford to go. And that was the money that, if anything goes wrong in the house, plumbing, electrics, that's the money we're going to use. And that's the money, that's why it was being saved. No, it's not. We need to use that money. And I said, all right, we'll use some. No, you need to transfer it into the account and you need to do it ASAP. And my head was like, okay, I need to do this.
But you knew there was
part of me knew there was something wrong.
Because you were telling me.
Yeah, and I went to the bank straight away. Now I'm thinking, who do you think you are? I'm going to give you the money back then. I was like, I was so proud, you ain't going to tell me that I'm doing something wrong or lying. And I wasn't. So I remember going into the bank and I went to see how much was in there. And there was 10 grand in there, right? And I was like, you ain't going to give all that money over because something is not right.
Yeah.
And I just remember literally, and I didn't even know what I did. I shouldn't have done it, but I just remember transferring over £4,000. And I really honestly don't. Listen, as we said, it was by the grace of God that I left that money back because I would have been left with nothing.
But the similar experience that I encountered with that was when I got my money from my mum. This is the pattern, I suppose, guys, that we're both talking about. If you have any money or you have access to money, that immediately goes into the family pot and is either spent or eliminated in some way. Yeah. So as you saw, he knew she had this money. Probably forgot about it.
Yeah, because I needed to be left with nothing. That was the whole point.
The whole point is obviously for you to have nothing. Yeah. So he knew you had this money, so it was bugging him because he knew you had access to funds. So he told you need to spend the money on the holiday. Luckily, she didn't use all the money, guys. But that was what he told you in order for you to get rid of that money.
Yeah, of course.
In my case, when I received some money, the house was a mess, guys. As I said, I have to emphasize, there was no support financially within the home. So I received this money and we decided to fix the house.
Oh gosh, I remember that.
We decided to fix the house. Ugh. So every cent went.
Oh.
And I remember being blamed about that though. I remember him blaming me, saying, look at you, you're so bad with money. As soon as you got that money.
Yes,
do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Did you got that money? You didn't want to fix the house. And I was like, huh? Like, I'm telling you, the damage it does in your mind, it actually makes you second guess everything you do, because one minute you're being told this, then you do it, and then you're like, oh, you're in trouble anyway. It's so damaging. It's so damaging.
It's mentally destroying, isn't it?
It's so damaging. So damaging. As I said to you guys, this type of abuse, for me, is a deal breaker. For me, it's a deal breaker. Am I saying that everybody should just leave the people that this is happening to them with? No. It's not going to be that simple, especially if it's your child or a parent. It isn't going to be that simple. You will have to decide how you choose to distance yourself from that individual. My journey on how I moved away, and I'm not saying that this is the only thing that happened in my marriage. There were many other things. There were things that I will definitely take blame for the rest of my life as to what caused the ultimate demise of my marriage. But this was definitely a very, very, I'd say probably number 2 on the list of the reasons why our marriage didn't work. And it still took me 5 years longer than it probably should have done. How you choose to, leave or remove yourself from that situation is up to you. But whether or not you need to do that is definitely not for debate. Yeah. It's not going to change. It's not going to get any better. And if anything, the scars are just going to be deeper. If anything, the scars are going to be deeper. Your relationship with money is going to be so severely damaged that it's going to take you years just in that department alone to heal from, should I say. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so what would you say? Your advice?
It's a hard one because everybody's circumstances are different and what everybody goes through. But I would say just see the signs. If you see a sign that isn't right, it clearly isn't. I mean, just take what you want from what I think maybe what we've said, and if all these things are just ringing alarm bells, then do something about it. Get out. That's I know maybe not, I'm not asking people to get out of a marriage. I'm just saying these signs that we've been saying are pretty clear signs of financial abuse, and I think when you're going through that. So
yeah, I agree. I would never advise anyone to leave their marriage. These things are not taken lightly. Some of us don't even have the resources to leave. I definitely wasn't in a position to leave, and I think had he not left, I probably would still be in that situation. So it isn't about we're telling you need to leave, although ultimately this type of relationship cannot, I think, carry on.
Advice as well would be one major one. Whether you have a really close friend you can speak to, them, or even
you need to find a support,
even a therapist.
Yes,
if you need to, because when you talk these things over people, you start to see even clearer signs that there's something not right. And we were fortunate
to have that support,
and we were brought,
between ourselves.
Together. We would say,
I agree.
By the grace of God, we were put together for a reason. And that was me to learn. And I did. I'll say, I learned from what you went through,
and I learned from what you went through by seeing it happening with someone else. I realised what was happening with me. Do you know what I mean? So definitely, as Ellie said, guys, I think you need to spot the signs, seek support. And if after you have done those 2 things, you start to feel stronger or more capable, or it just becomes more unbearable to be in that situation, I feel like ultimately you will need to get out.
I think the worst thing, I think this is for me, you can do is if you see certain signs that are not right, and sometimes you talk about them with the person that's involved, you will not see the sign clearly. They're going to make you believe a difference. So sometimes that's why it's better to speak to somebody who's more independent,
not involved.
So maybe independent's not the right with that. Yeah, who's not involved in it. Because
Yeah.
then you get an idea of, you know, it might be just a little phase you're going through. And it's, you know, as we all have had marital, you know, issues.
I agree. Even me, I think talking to people in my circle were too close.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't speak to Ellie about it until afterwards when I realised what I went through. I didn't speak to my mum about it. I didn't speak to my brothers about it because they were too close. When I spoke to my cousin about it, it wasn't because I spoke to her about financial abuse. I spoke to her about her relationship with her husband, like seeing how they managed shopping and food and money overall. And I couldn't believe that what I was hearing, it was such the opposite of what I was experiencing. So it is maybe having a look at somebody else's experience. This is why we had this conversation, so that you can clearly see for yourself. And I think once you know better, most of the times we try to do better, guys. So having just this knowledge, having this conversation that you can listen to and play back is going to help someone in the future, you know, and that's why we've had this conversation. So I do hope it helps. But yeah, guys, that is all for this episode of the She's on a Budget podcast. If you found it helpful, please do not forget to leave a review down below. It really, really does help the channel. And yeah, guys, I will speak to you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.